Well, welcome to day 3 of Living Nature. Thank you so much to our incredible host institution today, the iconic British Library, for this co-creation. It's an honor and a pleasure to be working with you. And thank you to our sponsors, Orem Fund Management, for sincerely and generously making this series literally come to life. I say it's day 3 of Living Nature, but actually this is the 3rd day in the rest of your life, because what we've been talking about over the last few days have really they need to embed in our future going forward. I'm Jessica Swaden, co-founder of Flourishing Diversity and Synchronicity Earth, both partners in this event series alongside the Imitable Invisible Dust. As I said on day 1, this collaboration has been a joy. I think and hope that comes through in the quality of the events so far. Our collective teams have poured their hearts and souls into this series because we all believe so much in the importance of having these kinds of conversations right now. I hope many of you have enjoyed the last few days as much as I have. We have literally traveled from across the world, from the Arctic to the US, to Ghana, to New Zealand and Australia, and back again to where I am now in the UK. Our discussions have centered us on querying what it means to be human in relationship to each other and alongside other species. We've talked quite a lot about the rights of nature and culture. We've listened to the land, and we've listened to Judy Lynn Wong and Pat McCabe, 2 beautiful, powerful, deep women. And we've also traveled through time, kicking off with discussions framed by a fossil, taking us to last night's discussion about long time and challenging human-made constructs. I don't know about all of you, but I feel enlivened and full, but I'm ready for more. So today we have another incredible program. I really hope you stay tuned for as much as you can throughout the day. For sure, these sessions we have in store today will be as enriching, as fulfilling, and as mind-blowing. First, we will meet Ati Viviam, a young Arhuaco activist from Colombia. Followed by that will be a heartening discussion of nature relationships and urban environments. Then we have a vibrant panel in store with 5 amazing speakers hosted by the wonderful Phoebe Tickle. And we'll unpack that, and that panel will unpack the how of how we need to move from here into the future systems that embed life and nature at their core. It doesn't stop there. Stamina people, we're going for full transmission today, full download. So please don't miss the conversation with Inuit activist Sheila Cloutier at 7 p.m. and stay tuned for the listening session this evening with traditional healer and leader from the Ecuadorian Amazon, Manari Ishigwa. So with that, I wish you all good luck. May the force be with you. Enjoy every second of it. Thank you again for joining us. And now I will turn over to Andrea Langlois and Ati Viviam to get us started. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Langlois, and I am a joy to be a member of the Flourishing Diversity team and to be hosting today's session. Just to note that the talk will be in Spanish with simultaneous audio translation, so you can listen. It should be set to English right now. If you choose to listen in the original audio from Ati in Spanish, you can click the word Spanish at the bottom of your screen. So let's set the stage. The Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta is a unique pyramid-shaped mountain on the northern tip of the Andes in Colombia. On its slopes live 4 separate but related peoples, the Arhuaco, Wiwa, Kogi, and Cancuamo. Until just a few years ago, I'd actually myself never heard of these peoples. These are peoples who during the times of colonization fled into the mountains, where they sheltered their ways of life and maintained their connection, their profound connection to the wise voice of Mother Earth, to listening. In 2019, I had a really beautiful luck of having a very brief trip to Colombia where I got to meet some members of the Kogi and Arhuaco communities. I was really personally very touched by the presence, the language, their ways. And even though this time I spent with a few of the mammals actually was really brief, I feel it impacted my life in so many ways. I don't actually know that I would be sitting here today if that encounter hadn't taken place. They've added fuel to the inspiration of my commitment to walking a path dedicated to Mother Earth, hoping to even cut off a sliver of what I felt the commitment of the people I met. To the people of the Sierra Nevada, the mountains are the heart of the world. They are surrounded by an invisible black line that encompasses the sacred sites of their ancestors and demarcates their territory. Because of their deep connection with the land, with its energy, the people of the Sierra Nevada have for decades been very acutely aware of small and large changes and impacts the climate disruption is having in their areas in the Santa Marta. And for decades, they've been bringing their voice to us, who they call little brother, to warn and to have us try to get us to act, to respond to the changes that it's so obvious that we have a big role in creating. To this day, the legacy of giving voice to nature continues through this new generation of Arhuaca. So today I'm introducing and welcoming not only Viviam, but also the presence of the Sierra Nevada, the heart of the world. So to introduce our speaker, Ati Viviam Villafaña Izquierdo is a 24-year-old member of the Arhuaco Indigenous communities in Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, the heart of the world. She is a student of political science at Javeriana University and a research assistant at Colombia's Scientific and Biodiversity Humboldt Institute. She is part of Unite for Climate Action, a diverse group of young people from Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, who are connected through experience of climate change and seeking to be heard in decision-making spaces. She's joining us from London today, and she's en route to Glasgow to bring her message to the COP26 Climate Summit next week. So we'll now hear from Viviam, after which we'll have a Q&A. So please just type your questions into the box. Without further ado, bienvenidas a ti, Viviam.
Hola, hello.
Soy Ati Viviam Villafaña Izquierdo. The speaker is speaking in Arhuaco language.
Hola, ¿cómo están?
Hello, how are you doing? I was speaking in the Arhuaco language. I was introducing myself, and I was letting you know about my goal, taking advantage of this space to talk about the Sierra Nevada. Andrea gave a powerful and complete presentation. She gave an insight about what I want to talk about. I do hope to go to Glasgow, be part of the COP26, making my voice heard, and to talk about the Sierra. To talk about the Sierra Nevada is a huge responsibility. It's a big one, but we assume it. It's a huge responsibility to take this message, to make it heard, to think about the impact of this message being heard outside of country, outside our community. We could talk a little bit about my role in the Sierra. When I introduced myself, I said my name was Ati Gunawi. This means Mother Earth. Since we are little, in our community, we have a name assigned to us. It's a name chosen by spiritual consultation. This name entices a responsibility being given to you. That's your responsibility towards the Sierra Nevada. I grew up in Santa Marta. It's a city outside the community. This was due to the violence suffered in the Sierra. A lot of the people from the community left the Sierra, and it was not only because of this, it was also because they wanted to speak the Western language to fight for what we have here. And speaking the Western language means understanding the Western way of thinking. So many years ago, a lot of leaders started to go out and they started to create organizations representing the indigenous people. That's how the message started to being spread. We're part of a generation that carries a message over the borders, but it's a generation as well that respects our authorities inside the Sierra. We're in no way looking forward to replace them. That's a bit of what I do. My education happened outside of the community. I'm specialized in political science. I also work at the Humboldt Institute, and I'm also part of the Unite for Climate Action. And I also like to talk a little bit more about it because my role at the CUP has to do with my role in this group. Right now, you can see on the screen a really diverse group, Sail for Climate Action. The idea was to gather the youth from Latin America, the Caribbean, and Europe. All of us are activists, and we want to bring our voice in all of the spaces that are making decisions for the environment. For example, at that point, it was in Bonn, Germany, at the intersectional. The idea was to cross the Atlantic. At that point, the first concerns regarding the environment started to be obvious. So far, my work had been really local. I was a teacher at the community. I had a direct interaction with them. Then my voice started to be bigger. I was part of bigger spaces. So the first consideration for me was, what's my purpose? What role am I playing in this space? And what does this mean for the Sierra? That's when I start to have these deep considerations inside the community. What's necessary? What do we need to bring to all of these negotiations? What does it mean to be part of a negotiation being a community in northern Colombia? A community made of 45,000 people, and that also has visions within a territory. And also it's a community that has different leaders representing it in different spaces. So we needed to start to making all of these more concise. So far in this year, what I've understood is that we need to generate understanding. That's crucial. We need to create understanding. And what does this mean? We need to understand the perspective and what each other think, their cosmovision. But we need to go beyond. We need to understand it. We need to transform it. We need to respect it. Many things come into play when we talk about our current climate crisis. Indigenous people are essential. They are our biggest allies to fight climate change. And I've been understanding these while I prepare for COP26. The Indigenous people role is crucial. And now we're having the youth that is learning. So we need to understand and we need to generate these spaces, this understanding. What we're going to see then is an excellent image. We have here mamos the elders from 3 indigenous peoples. We were talking about the black line. So we have the Sierra. So we have this delimited by the black line with sacred places. In this place, we have 4 indigenous peoples that share a cosmovision and a way to relate to the world. We have Wowi, Gigua, Cancamo, and Arhuaco people. They coexist, they live together. And the target is to expand this autonomy.
And these traditional authorities are coming together. On the left, we have the mamo corresponding to the Arhuaco people. To the right, the Kowi mamo, and to the right we have a Wiwa leader. These leaders' trajectories are key in their community. They vertebrate our communities. They are the keepers of knowledge, of tradition, and they are responsible for raising the younger mamos. They are what keeps the community together. These are representatives and they're important to our community. They talk about the Sierra like the heart of the world, but this is a metaphor. Yes, it is a very biodiverse place, but it is as well the heart of the world. In our cosmovision, we have these concentric circles. And this is how we view our territory from the very beginning. And according to the mamos, the world was built through thought. Thought is vital. And this thought was materialized. And this gives humans responsibility. Thought became material. The indigenous people are the older brother. They are the older brother because they have the responsibility and they assume the responsibility. This responsibility makes us guardians of nature. We are the keepers of understanding of nature. When everything was thought, when everything was spiritual, the Sierra was the very center. And from there, we can see the black line. From the very beginning, we're talking about this black line. We have a concept that is spiritual moms and dads, mothers and fathers. They're not just outside our world, they are in the territory. they live spiritually in the territory. This is key because historically, Christianity has this concept of divinity being an external force. There is a role of vigilantism, and this is mediated by morality, and this makes creating understandings difficult. If your father and spiritual father and spiritual mother inhabit in a place that you consider sacred, you must protect this place. From the sacred space, we see the world interrelated. We see the black line as where we see our peoples inhabiting. Then the second circle is Colombia, then the third one is the sea, and then there's other lands. So we were aware of the existence of these little brothers. They are little brothers because they aren't aware of this responsibility. We bear this responsibility and we differentiate ourselves from the ones who don't. We, as responsible people, feed the spirits of spiritual mothers and fathers. We are aware of this responsibility, while the people who are aware, who are unaware, just see potential. They don't see responsibility. They see it as arable land that can help us live better without the responsibility. In the quotation, we see that the earth is mother, and like a mother, she will take care of us if we obey their law. And this was said by Amamo. Our law is not written down in books. Our origin law is unwritten. In the Western world, we see there are laws for each and everything. There are written systems that have checks and balances. But in indigenous thought, the original law is vertebrating our whole conception. We see this original law in the plants, in the animals, in the trees. They give us the laws. So let's go to the black line map. So this is where the line map was. In the 1950s, negotiated started. People realized that they are, sorry, that was 1850. People realize that there are some indigenous people that have something interesting to say. But in Colombia's constitution, they consider us savages, and that created this versus them versus us. And there are many other countries in South America where there is no acknowledgement of indigenous people. There are assimilation policies instead. And this black line is the materialization of what we already thought. The red dots are the secret spots. And when you draw them together, when you draw a line taking them all together, that creates the black line. In those red spots, we can see our spiritual mothers and fathers. When we're trying to protect Earth, it's not in vain. There is a spirituality backing it. If you alter one of those points, the whole system collapses. And it erodes our thought because it erodes our spiritual mother or father that is there. and bringing these concepts to bigger spaces, to decision-taking spaces, and trying to explain this spiritual connection to the territory can be very complicated. How can the territory be inhabited by spiritual beings? It makes it very difficult to manage the translation, not from Spanish into English or to many other languages. It is a difficult translation of thoughts. Sierra Nevada makes part of 3 departments, Magdalena, La Guajira, y El Cesar. There is a northern face that faces the sun, that faces the sea, sorry. Here we see the different dots, but we will see how the territory implies different things. Let's talk about the cosmovision. We'll explain it through a video that was made in collaboration with the Kogi people. And so let's go to the video now.
The mothers set out to trace a black line along the shore, joining specific sites by the mouths of the rivers. These, they say, connect directly with locations on the mountain and are where they used to do their work, before the modern world took over and changed things.
I was saying that Alan Adeda created this documentary. It was in the Kogi territory, and you can see the comparison between Western and Kogi cosmovision. There's an astrophysician, if I remember quite correctly, that interviews the Kogi Mamo, and they ask him about even the Kogi vision, there's a universe per se. And the Kogi says, yes, there is a universe. And he says that the Mother Earth is not just planet Earth, there's a wider cosmovision. So it's a really interesting point of view. I was talking about codes and to try to understand the regulations and legislation according to the indigenous people's point of view. We have here carved stone, and they need to be translated, and that's what mamos do. They're wise people. They go deep in the Sierra, and they start to generate the understanding for the indigenous people. So that's why it's crucial. So now the youth has the responsibility of bringing all of this understanding outside of the Sierra. So maybe in the Western, we cannot educate the spirit, but at least we can have a reading and transmit a message. Right here have a settlement. We can see how this is a community. All houses are together. We inhabit the land together. Here we can see cancuas, we can see the sacred houses. We also have a division between all the feminine and the masculine part. And this gives a whole new sense to what we do, to our spiritual work. This spiritual work is the spiritual consultation we have with our mamo. For example, creating a community, settling down, we need to have a spiritual consultation for this. And that's how we see it. We need to organize our houses. We need to know where the community center is. We can see right now 2 bigger houses. These are the cancuas that I was talking about. One for men, one for women. And there's a sense in it. You have an entrance, you have an exit. That's how we start to organize our lives. And as you can see in the picture, building our houses, it brings the memory of the Sierra itself. That's the sense, that's the meaning, that's why we make them this way. They have rings, ring after ring after ring after ring, and in the center is what matters the most, is the heart of it, the heart of the world, concentric circles. When we talk about the Sierra, we're talking about richness, environmental, physical richness. We have a huge diversity when it comes to climate, biodiversity. We have snow at the top of our mountains, and we also have the sea, as I was telling you earlier. We have sacred mountains, sacred lagoons that are only visited by the mamos, and they need to prepare spiritually before going to these places, because your thought can be destructive. So if you don't have your mind at the right place, you can disrupt this place energy. The way we connect with nature, the understanding that we have with it, comes through different materials that are really valuable for us. We collect seashells, as you can see, for example, in this picture. There's a poporo. It's a typical gourd, and it's used by men. In this, we will have the seashell's dust. Then you have coca leaf, and they will be showing it. It's something crucial in our community. Coca leaf represents femininity. Now in this picture, you have a Kogi woman. She's collecting the seashells. So for this spiritual consultation, the mamos uses materials that come from nature. They are sacred. At some point, people were even talking about gold, but that was foraged, that was stolen. But when we talk about the Sierra, we need to bring the message with responsibility. We're not talking about a remote place with indigenous populations, and that is something that is apart and away from me. We need to be aware that there's a responsibility towards the Sierra. There's history. There's the history of settlements, colonization, neo-colonization. And new generations also need to be responsible about this narrative. The mamos also say that the gold that they're using wouldn't make anyone rich. Gold, silver, quartz, Even cotton is sacred. The houses left by the caterpillars where they turned into butterflies, that's also sacred and used for spiritual consultation. The stones. So each mamo uses this, and what it means is that they're using all of these materials and their interpretation for giving advice to their community, if something can be authorized or not, if something is feasible, if it's possible, if we can carry the message out, for example. Mamos really focus on thought and responsibility. What are we talking about? So that's why we need to have a clear goal. And our traditional work is the way to create connection among the community. We need to take care of our thoughts. We need also to make material payments. It's not just about gratitude and saying thank you, and that's where my responsibility towards Mother Nature ends. We need to make payments and retributions spiritually and physically. So now, it's really interesting. So we have the black line, and we can see how many indigenous reserves we have, which parts are Arhuaco places, all the towns, settlements, but also now we have the mines. Now talking about the Sierra and creating this understanding, we also need to take into account that different actors, factors that have an impact in the Sierra. And that's why it's crucial to create collaborations and alliances to protect the Sierra. The yellow spots that you see on the map are mining places, and what is blue are requests for keep on mining. But we need to take into account that the Sierra is a sacred place, not only spiritually, but at a material level. And there's an interest in exploiting this place. The rivers that go through the Sierra are essential for a lot of developing projects. That's why when I'm talking about taking care of the Sierra and fighting for it, it's not just on a spiritual part. That's why authorities are starting to take place in this conversation, because they were aware about the richness of the Sierra. But not only for preserving it, but for exploiting it. That was their way of thinking. So authorities and our authorities started to think, how can we make that the white people, for saying so, could understand what we say, is not something childish. When we start to create these relationships, we were thinking about it and it was seen as childish thinking. But nowadays we're aware that the only way to fight climate change is to protect, to preserve. So we need to change our thought and our way of life. We need to fight consumerism. We need to think beyond consuming, privatizing. We need to fight exploitation. We need to rethink national economy. And all of this thought makes that the situation is really complex for indigenous peoples. In this map, we cannot see it, but in the north, there's a lot of tourism, and it's mass tourism. And what this does to us is that they create and alter our sacred places. So having more people into these places and into these negotiations we're creating even more risks. This place is still living the remnants of the armed conflict in Colombia and has a lot of presence of the paramilitary. So we need to create a double alliance. We need to work with the Sierra. We need to create alliances within the Sierra. We need to protect it. Also the indigenous people. We have 2 videos, so we can go ahead with them.
Bueno, nosotros salimos de Santa Marta
We
para
go
Mingueo
from
junto
Santa
con los 3
Marta
manes
to
y ir al
Puerto
sitio
Rica.
sagrado que llamamos Juculba,
We are trying to go
precisamente
to
donde
the
Puerto
sacred
Brisa
place,
está construyendo
which
un
is
puerto
exactly in
multipropósito.
Puerto Brisa, where
¿Qué vamos a pagar?
a multi-purpose port is being built.
¿Por qué no me permite ahorita?
Could I see?
¿Sí que sería?
Sí, ¿ah?
Here?
Germán Zárate está.
Germán Salas de parte de...
This is Germán Saras.
Pero usted es de la parte indígena, ¿sí, no?
Sí, claro que sí. Todo este equipo de
All this,
la organización Buenaventura.
this
De la
team,
buena bandúa.
Sí, viene, vamos Fulgi, vamos Arhuaco, vamos a hacer un pagamento allá, pero lo vamos a registrar.
we are trying to bring payment,
Ya, correcto.
Por favor.
spiritual payment.
¿Lo grabaste?
Por cada una de las copias, ¿verdad, chica?
They're
Tenemos aquí
talking
una de
between
la parte
among
indígena.
themselves.
60 J1, ¿quieren hablar con usted?
They're trying to
Anteriormente era
come
muy
in.
difícil, pero yo creo que ahora
It used to be
había
very
como cierto
difficult,
acercamiento,
but it seems
pero
that
no deja
now
de
we're
ser siempre como
feeling
un
closer,
la entrada.
and it's making me think. Two years ago.
Por eso venimos, porque aquí nadie nos diga que no entre,
We
nadie
are
nos
coming
diga,
here
nadie nos va a
because
prohibir,
no
porque
one
venimos,
can
ese son los sitios de nosotros.
stop us
Oiga,
from coming here. This is
oiga,
our
no,
place.
perdónenme, pero bueno, ahora hablamos. No sé.
We can talk later.
79179. Ya, no puede decir así.
7969.
No, así, ya.
No le he podido permitir la entrada porque estoy
Today, I cannot allow you to come here
de impresiones.
because
Siempre hay
we are
como
waiting.
una prevención hacia nosotros.
They are always
Pero
trying to avoid
tratemos
us,
de entrar, tenemos que estar listos con las
but
cámaras. y grabar
we
todo.
have to try and get in.
Tenemos 2 resoluciones y varias certificaciones
We
que
have
nos
resolutions,
certifican
we have
que aquí no existen
certification
zonas de pagamento, no existen comunidades
showing that
indígenas,
there's
no existen
no
negritudes.
places
Esta
for
reclamación es
offerings,
absurda.
there's no indigenous communities here. So this is absurd. We have tried 4 times, and I'm scared because they're not letting us get there, and there's no way to get there. So we have tried to reach an agreement, but we haven't gotten there. We haven't gotten an agreement.
¿No? Y le están preparando un
Which
referéndum.
will be the end of this? Will you let us build? And perhaps the little brother doesn't understand the payment. But we are trying to cancel our debt with nature. We have used things from nature. We have eaten its fruit without purchasing it. But Seranque is the owner of everything. He was the one who made the earth, who made the sky. Seranque is our father. The 4 indigenous groups of the Sierra are supposed to pay for this. Little brother pays taxes, but we pay our taxes to nature. And how do we pay? How do we pay these taxes? We breathe. We breathe, and the mammal collects all the offerings. He places them together, the fruits, the quartz, the gold, and he breathes. He breathes with the tax, with the payment, with the offering. And with this breathing, he gives the offering to nature. But the mammal has to have had undergone purification, because if the mind, the body, the heart isn't impure, that will not go well. In our culture must be alive. The culture cannot die off, because if our culture of giving offering to nature, everything would end with it.
Muchas gracias. Esa es mi presentación.
Thank you very much. That's my presentation.
Wow. Viviam, thank you so much for taking us on a journey into the heart of the Sierra Nevada, into the cosmovision of these incredible peoples that are more than people, as you've just said. We can't just describe Indigenous people as people. There's this whole world and so many pieces to, so many threads to follow. I'm curious, you mentioned that you didn't grow up in the community, that you grew up in the city of Santa Marta. What has it been like for you to reintegrate back into the community?
Creo que la desconexión implica cosas.
I think the lack of connection means missing out on many internal processes. In some cases, for example, it means that our local first mother tongue may be forgotten. I am very aware in my objectives. I think there are many distractions in Earth. And if we really think about it, my objective of leaving the community, of trying to reach certain spaces, certain privileges, like studying at a university, these privileges must give us space for reflection. There is a bigger objective, more further than graduating. They are all tools, and all of these privileges must go to pay back our community.
We have a question from Jerome Lewis, Viviam, and he's asking, you said that you've talked about how it's thought that created the world. And he was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit and say a bit more about this idea.
Los mamos le dan principal relevancia.
The mamos think that is very, very relevant to talk about thought. In our local language, we have a word for it. It is very difficult to translate this very particular word, because you have to understand both worlds, not just understand it. This word for thought means thought made into word. It's not thought, it's not word, it's a thought that was made into a word. The Gaznama means that there's no space for materiality if the thought isn't behind it. So that's why we have to really take care of our own thoughts. So it's vital to take care of our own thoughts. When it comes to cosmology, the world was a thought. The spiritual fathers had thought the world in this way. It used to be dark. It was very dark. Dark and darkness is a synonym of knowledge, of wisdom, because this darkness was inhabited by the spiritual parents. The world used to be spirituality, knowledge, thought. And when the spiritual fathers decided to assign roles and functions to each and every spiritual parents, a materiality was created. These are the spiritual parents that inhabit the different places. So we acknowledge these places because the essence of the spirituality is inhabiting the places where the spiritual fathers are.
In the last video you shared was very powerful. That just really around the importance, and I think you showed the black line of the different areas that need to be, in spiritual balance. And it looked like there was a bit of a conflict of some mammals trying to go and make a payment to the earth in an area where they weren't allowed. And then the description of what a payment is, kind of like being in debt. Could you describe a little bit more of what this process of making pagamentos is about?
En el video, de hecho,
in the video is has sparked a debate. Villafaña, the author of the documentary, has sparked the debate because it registers our memory, it makes it tangible, and it is made by someone who understands the language of the mammals, who understands the language, who has spent some time outside the community, so they can move very well in both community. He's regarded as a very well-respected member of the community. This is a bit of an apart, but he, the author, has a lot of different videos and a lot of different documentary. Please feel free to look him up on Google because it is a very great view of what really is going on at the Sierra. And I really like this documentary about the resistance because in 2006, I was 9. And I remember this contact. I started to understand the tension between being indigenous and having this fight that have another dimension, political and economic. And I was in this demonstration. It was a really long walk so that we can do, so we can sit. And in 2006, there was a person who had to come here saying this is not an indigenous land. This was incredibly telling. This was what sparked my interest in political science and studying the subject. And later, we see that, yes, in the end, the port was built. And this had a lot of impact in that region, in the development of the region in Colombia. And this is really worrying us. We are trying to negotiate in Glasgow. We're trying to reach compromises. At that point, entry was denied because it's a private area. It's a private, it's not ours. We are not allowed entry. So at some points we need to negotiate with the owners. Please let us have this little area, and those are brutal negotiations. So one of our biggest fights is actually buying land, because if we can buy the land, we can protect it. We cannot protect the land that isn't ours. Where we won't live, we aren't able to protect that land. So we are trying to broaden our protection.
So you're heading to the COP26 summit in Glasgow next week, right? I do hope we get to meet in person. And I'm curious, what is the message that you're bringing to the Sierra? What is the message you're bringing to little brother in Glasgow?
Un poco saber también la magnitud de lo que es
We want to understand the COP a little bit better. There's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of compromise, and we have really taken a lot of time to understand what the COP really is, what the governance in the place is. We need to understand the structure and the hierarchy of the different events. We have been receiving training little by little, that those spaces have been created taking into account that Indigenous people and Southern people are coming here. So we want them to be taken into account. So up until now, these negotiations have been completely empty, nothing but blah, blah, blah. But we want deep changes. We want ideas that materialize. We don't want just protection that isn't practical. It's not just about recycling. This is a very important and key change. We need to do something about emissions. So youth like me that work on the local area, we want to go to the spaces like the COP. Unite for Climate Action is the platform with which I'm going, and this really big platform really means a lot. They have huge projects, they have huge commitment. There's plenty of people working in logistics. And from our platform, we are trying to figure out what we can bring to places. How can I bring my ideas forward? And how I bring my responsibility to the spaces to generate impact in the Sierra. At the end of the day, ego fights and fights are a distraction, and they're not positive. Bringing the voice to the Sierra also means bringing back to the Sierra in a very practical way.
A beautiful way to end our conversation, Viviam. I thank you so much. I wish you all of the luck in your getting your voice heard in Glasgow and really the voice of your people. I think what you've said has really touched me, that it all begins with our thoughts. And for thoughts of greed and consumption and domination, we can't really create, flourishing diversity. You really need to start there. So thank you very much. And I hope you have great success. And I really also heard that your people need support to purchase the land. That land that is in your communities, in your hands, will be protected for many, many generations. So thank you. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for coming to Living Nature. We have another session coming up at 3:15. Looking at connecting to people, plants, and place in urban environments. So we'll see you back then. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.